I think that radical Islamism is also a challenge to the Muslim population, and I don't think that we should highlight and focus purely on Christians. I don't need to explain to you that in Nigeria it's Muslims being killed, it's Christians being killed, it's been atheists being killed. It doesn't matter who you are. It's that insecurity that I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is highlighting and offering to work with the Nigerian authorities to help tackle, because this is affecting Christians, it's affecting Muslims, and it's affecting people of no religion.
Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced a new front to protect Christian communities in Nigeria and beyond. He cited persecution and violence against Christians in this country and framed the protection of Christian communities as an eighth front in the battle against radical Islamists. So how much does this move signal Israel's expanding role in global security, particularly in Africa, as we enter 2026? Meanwhile, 2025 was a bloody year in Gaza, where the war appears to have wound down, but only after Israel razed much of what was left of the Strip in a relentless assault, and Donald Trump pledged to bring peace to a world ablaze, putting himself center stage in that trouble spot. But his framework deal has left the core dispute unresolved, and a peace accord still seems elusive. Will 2026 be any better? Well, for more on all this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, Michael Freeman. Good to see you, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Happy New Year.
And to you as well.
Let's start with Nigeria and that announcement by Prime Minister Netanyahu of a new Israeli front to protect Christian communities in this country and other parts of Africa. How has it come to this?
Well, I think that what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, and it was very clear, was that he wants to make sure that all those persecuted around the world, and he highlighted Christians around the world, not only in Nigeria, that it was important to do what Israel can in order to work with our partners, to work with Nigeria, and that's very important. This is about working with Nigeria. This is not about working against Nigeria. It's working with them as a partner, as an ally, and seeing what we can do. And he emphasized the issue of intelligence sharing and working in that area. And certainly I think that's the area that we will be looking at, to work with the Nigerian government to see where we can work together to stop the attacks that are taking place against Christians, but also against Muslims and against all Nigerians. Our interest is to work with Nigeria to stop all the violence in this country.
I was going to ask you what specific actions Prime Minister Netanyahu proposes to take to protect Christians in Nigeria, but you've kind of answered that. But no unilateral action.
No, absolutely. Our aim is to work with the Nigerian government, and the Prime Minister highlighted issues of intelligence sharing and other areas, and I think that we will be led and guided by the Nigerian government as to where we can work and where we can partner, because this is very much about working with an ally, working with a partner, and doing things to tackle insecurity as a whole within the country.
And I mean, you're obviously, Israel is a staunch ally of the United States. I mean, if Mr. Trump was to decide to take some further action in Nigeria unilaterally, what would Israel's response be? I mean, I know it's a hypothetical situation.
Well, one, it's a hypothetical situation, and two, I think there's probably a better question to ask the American ambassador rather than the Israeli ambassador as to what the
the question is, what would Israel's response be?
Well, in a hypothetical, we'd have to see what the situation was. I couldn't tell you what our response is. What I can tell you is that we want to work with the Nigerian government to see what we can do to help and work with them to tackle insecurity across the country.
And how has the Nigerian government responded to Mr. Netanyahu's statement? I'm wondering if there's been any sort of behind-the-scenes diplomatic communication about this between you and the Tinubu administration?
Well, any communication behind the scenes will obviously remain behind the scenes. But as I said, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made our position clear, and so anything that we can do in those areas, and obviously when you're dealing with issues of intelligence and when you're issuing of information, it's not something that we're going to talk about publicly, because that would undermine the entire purpose of having a conversation about intelligence sharing.
But why would Mr. Netanyahu be talking about protecting Christians in Nigeria when peace remains elusive in his own backyard in Gaza? I mean, doesn't his statement seem contradictory given the ongoing Gaza conflict?
I don't think they're contradictory at all. What Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about was Christians across the world. It wasn't only he spoke about Christians in Nigeria, he spoke about Christians across the world. And he highlighted the fact that Israel is the only country in the Middle East where the Christian population is growing. It's the only country in the Middle East where the Christian population is thriving. It's the only country in the Middle East where Christians have complete freedom of worship and freedom to do what they want. And I think that that was the point that the Prime Minister Netanyahu was making. And that's the critical point here is that opportunity for Christians. You know, if you look at Israeli society, Christians are the most well-educated in Israel. They are the wealthiest. There are many, many things. But fundamentally, Christians have total freedom of religion. They can pray where they want. You know, we've just had New Year and Christmas, and you saw thousands of Christians in Jerusalem, walking through the Via della Rosa, going to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I was actually in Jerusalem on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day, and we saw Christmas trees and Christmas lights and Christians having a wonderful, wonderful time in Jerusalem, totally free to express their religion, to express their identity, and it was amazing to see. It was amazing as an observant Jew to be able to see this in my home city of Jerusalem.
So would it be fair to say that this announcement by Mr. Netanyahu, talking about protecting Christians, not just in Nigeria but around the world, is part of a broader strategy? He talked about an eighth front in the battle against radical Islamists.
Yes, I think that that's true. If we look at what Israel's faced over the last number of years, we've faced 7 fronts of different radical Islamists attacking us, from Hamas to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to the various militias and terror groups in Iraq and in Syria. And we've seen also Iran attacking us directly. And so this is the challenge that's facing the whole world. And by the way, I think that radical Islamism is also a challenge to the Muslim population. And I don't think that we should highlight and focus purely on Christians. I don't need to explain to you that in Nigeria, it's Muslims being killed, it's Christians being killed, it's been atheists being killed. It doesn't matter who you are. It's that insecurity that I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is highlighting and offering to work with the Nigerian authorities to help tackle, because this is affecting Christians, it's affecting Muslims, and it's affecting people of no religion.
But is it also about strategic diplomacy, an attempt to sort of strengthen ties with Christian communities and nations to counterbalance Muslim majority countries and Iran's influence, for instance, in addition to positioning Israel as a protector of Christians to bolster its image in the Christian world? Because, of course, that sort of action appeals to evangelical Christian supporters in the US and around the world, doesn't it?
Well, Israel protects Christian because it's what we believe in. Israel is a country that is founded on the principle of guarantee of equality of religion, the guarantee of freedom of religion. We see that the Muslims have freedom of religion, Christians have freedom of religion. The only time in Jerusalem's history when all the religions have had total freedom of religion is when Israel has been in control. And so it's not about doing something for political purposes or diplomatic purposes. This is a fundamental ideological belief that Israel holds, that we need to provide freedom of religion and protect all minorities. Doesn't matter if they are Christian, if they are Muslim, if they are Jew. The fundamental principle for us is to protect the freedom of religion and protect all of those people. So that's where this is coming from. That's where this is born from. And I would emphasize that Israel has got very strong relations with many Muslim countries around the world. We've seen that now we're celebrating 5 years of the Abraham Accords, where we signed agreements with the United Arab Emirates, with Bahrain, with Morocco. Only today we announced a deepening of strategic ties with Morocco in the defense field and in other areas. So we've got very strong relations with Muslim majority countries, with Muslim countries and with Christian countries, because I think those countries recognize that we work to protect freedom of religion regardless of what the religion is.